You're listening to the Clean Comedy Podcast with your host, James Creviston.
Hey everybody, this is James from the Clean Comedy Podcast, and I just want to shout out to you real quick to let you know that we're coming up on our 300th episode. 300, that's right, it's coming up, and there's going to be some big changes. You guys have requested a lot of stuff from me, and I'm going to give it to you. The logo over here, if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, is going to change. It will also change in your iTunes and all those things. You'll see a new logo coming up. Look for that. That'll change soon. You'll see it in the 300th episode. The new logo will be the background. The new logo, you'll see it everywhere, and everything will change on that day. We're also going to launch a Patreon. Lots of you have been asking for it. We're going to do a lot of stuff on Patreon. We're going to do get-togethers on there. We're going to do joke writing on there. We're going to do all the cool stuff that you guys want to do to make your comedy better. That's what I'm here for. So Patreon, it's going to be coming. So get excited. Episode 300, all that stuff's going to drop. You're also going to get a behind the scenes at what I've done since I started comedy, the amount of money I've made, the shows that I've done, the places I've been, the writing, everything that I've done. To get questions that you guys have, send them in. Email me for questions because we're going to do a Q&A on the 300th episode. Email cleancomedypodcast@gmail.com. See ya. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Clean Comedy Podcast. It's James. And today I have actually one of my favorite people that I actually know, him and his wife. They're both awesome and hilarious people. I've had the opportunity to work with both of them. His wife Steph has come and done my shows that used to be in Agora. He was out of town, so he couldn't do that same show, which would have been awesome to have both of them. But they are amazing people. No Steph today, but we are going to get the great, hilarious Mr. Tom Clark. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you, James. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I've met you at the Do-It-Yourself Center.
Oh, that's right.
Worcester.
I forgot about that.
We could do a show there.
We should have done a show there. That would have been awesome. I totally forgot about that we ran into each other there, and I was, oh yeah, wow. I forget. Well, because Tom and I live kind of in the same area, so I've seen them around quite a bit. So it's great. But so Tom, let's just start at the top. Let's pretend nobody's ever heard of you, which is crazy if that's true, because you've been on Comedy Central, Conan, Dry Bar, Amazon. I mean, he's everywhere. So if you haven't seen him, you're probably living under a rock. But let's say no one's ever heard of you.
I don't blame it. If no one's heard of me, it's not your fault, anyone.
It is your fault. It is your fault if you haven't heard of him. Oh, just kind of give them your origin story and kind of who you are and all that kind of stuff.
Let's see. I started in Milwaukee way back in 1994. I took a comedy class and just was kind of a weird. I really didn't know what I was doing. And one nice thing about Milwaukee is there was no one telling you how to do it. It's like performing in a vacuum. So there was no like alternative or edgy or anything. It was just sort of like we were all trying to figure it out. And I actually started with like Frank Caliendo. Dan Harmon was out there who created a community. So I actually, Dan was my improv teacher. So it was a really cool scene, but there was no negative influences. So as far as you just did your thing. And I was really learning on the fly and I really didn't know what I was doing. And I bombed for a couple of years and then sort of trying to be Andy Kaufman and kind of Steve Martin. And then eventually I kind of figured it out. And then I did the Chicago Comedy Festival in 98. And, I got a manager shortly thereafter and then moved to LA in 2001. And I've been out here ever since.
That's awesome. Now, you took a comedy class. Did that help at all? Did that kind of give you like a groundwork, or did you feel like it was counterintuitive?
No, it was good. I mean, it just gives. I took it with Dobie Maxwell, who's a longtime Chicago guy, also works pretty clean, and he just started a class. In the early '90s, there really wasn't. You had Judy Carter's book, and then I don't know how else it really started. And Dobie had the class and I went to it and I did the showcase and went really good. But I don't know if I still knew why I was getting laughs. I was just kind of like, I talked about working at a grocery store as a kid and how I would make up prices because I could never find the items in the grocery store. So I would like, and then I would gauge by the customer's reaction if the price was right. So if I was like, yeah, it's $4 for this tile, and I'm like, $4, I'd be like, $3, and I would just sort of go with that. So it was funny. It was a good routine, but it was obviously the audience was a little loaded with friends and family and stuff. So that next time I got up was a real wake up call because just no laughter, same routine, and just complete confusion as to why that didn't work. I did literally the same exact thing. Why am I not getting huge laughs every time?
And how long did it kind of take for you to figure out what the mechanism for getting that laugh was?
It just took a long time for me to get comfortable, I think, on stage and to really bomb and to really like not do well. And to kind of get out because you're trying to be I was trying to be like Jay Leno, I was trying to be Jerry Seinfeld, I was trying to be all these different people, but I wasn't really. It was really just throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what stick, and not really knowing how to write jokes and how to take things from your life and make them funny. It was just like trying. I didn't smoke pot, but I was like, oh, I'll come up with some pot jokes. Comedians tell pot jokes or Michael Jackson jokes or whatever. And it's like, I didn't think any of that was funny, but I was like, I think that's what I do. So it took probably 3 years to really figure things out. I think the big thing was to listen to Steve Martin, and I read a lot about him, and I really studied him. Like, this is the old days of like before his book, Born Standing Up.
Great book.
Yeah, a really good book if you're starting out in comedy. But I literally did all the research. I could have written that book. I did all the research of studying old videos of him at the library, or reading interviews in Rolling Stone about him, reading everything I could about him to understand like how he came into what he did on stage. And that's what I tried to be, literally sometimes doing his jokes on stage because I was just like trying to figure it out. Like, I mean, yeah, but it was very clearly, like I was saying, I was born a poor black child and very clearly a Steve Martin joke, but I was really trying to figure out. I didn't understand the first 3 years. I just did not understand how to be funny.
Wow. And so what was the switch for you? Like, what kind of became that switch where you said, oh, I get it now, and kind of turned the corner?
Well, I started doing improv with Comedy Sports. So that also started out in Milwaukee with Dick Chudnow, who was in Kentucky Fried Theater with Abram Zucker, and Dick splintered off from them. He had basically a nervous breakdown, moved back to Milwaukee and started up Comedy Sports. And through that, I had some great teachers, Dan Harmon, Kurt Scholler, and they really, and Dick Chudnow, and they just taught me to like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not get a laugh because you're just trying to figure things out, and just taught me to trust myself and to trust what I'm saying in the moment is the exact right thing to say. And I think that's when it kind of came together for me. Not that it was funny right away, but at least that I would trust myself.
I like that. It's actually someone recommended that I should do some improv. So I'm going to take some improv stuff starting September. So,
all right.
Yeah.
In Agora?
In Camarillo, there's like the Camarillo Players or whatever it is. Camarillo.
Okay.
I don't know. But yeah, they invited me to come out. So I'll be learning improv. I've never done it before. So I'm like,
oh, wow.
Excited.
Well, it's funny. I bring it up because Kurt is actually teaching a class right up the street here from me. He's teaching an improv class at this acting studio that just opened up right on the corner of Canwood and Reyes Adobe.
Oh, well, send me the information after the show. That'd be awesome. I probably should take the class, and I would be down to do that 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I will.
So yeah, that's awesome. So improv helped you get there, and then what helped you with writing the jokes? Like, what was because that part will help you be good on stage, but then you still have to write jokes or know how a joke works, right?
I said about imitating or, blatantly doing Steve Martin jokes, which, and again, if I was in another city, I'd probably be, taken out and flogged and whatever. But it's like in Milwaukee, it was like we were all just trying to figure it out. So there wasn't that judgment of like, look, this guy's starting out. I think that sometimes comedians can be real jerks as far as like, you're doing somebody else's material and I've got, and they just, it's just like they're trying to figure it out too. Like talk to them a little bit. Like, anyways, but nobody critiqued me. And then I just sort of took those formats of Steve Martin or Emo Phillips and tried to write jokes like them, similar to them. And eventually sort of found like what worked for me. And I would always get that, I was trying to be Steve Martin, and I would always get from people that I sound like Norm Macdonald. So I wasn't trying to be Steve Martin. I was trying to be Steve Martin, but everyone thought I was trying to be Norm Macdonald. So it's
not bad either. Not bad either.
He's a legend. But yeah, I just studied a lot of comedians and just tried to write jokes in them and found the setups and punchlines and tried to find similar setups and, similar punchlines, or at least similar rhythms in their jokes. Because a lot of comedies, the rhythm of how you say the jokes.
Yeah, joke. They always say that stand-up is like jazz, right? It has beats to it, it ebbs and flows, it ups and downs. But you can also improv in the moment, and that's where you get crowd work or things like that. So I totally get that feeling. Now, when you got your manager, so you did good in Chicago, you got your manager, you moved out to LA. How was that transition coming from Milwaukee to the LA comedy scene, which sounds like, oh my gosh,
Right. Well, I was going down to Chicago at the time. So I was doing Second City. So I started going down there in maybe 97, 98. So I at least sort of knew like, okay, this is like a bigger environment. I saw the cliques. I saw all the, the backstabbing and all that in comedy. But again, it was another great scene. Kyle Kinane was starting out then, Matt Bronger, Pete Holmes I met there, Kumail. So, I mean, all these guys were like starting when I was down there, and like, they were asking, when I would come back from LA, I would see them and go, oh, what's it like? And, like looked up to me, and I was like, wow, it's crazy, the turnaround. But it was tough. It was tough, that transition, because you have to go back to doing open mics and going up 80th on the lineup and doing 2 minutes and really just being treated really harshly. So it was tough. That first almost year I was hosting for bringer shows, because if I hosted, I wouldn't have to bring anybody. So I would like host these shows at the sushi restaurant in the Gower Gulch on Sunset and Gower. It was an old sushi restaurant. They had comedy in the back, and like Chelsea Handler would go up, Bill Burr, Patton Oswalt, like all these great but then it was also bringer, but they would want to perform for these 25 people in the back of the sushi place, and I would literally be hosting for no people in the audience because people would get there late. And then that was the beginning. It was rough.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. That sounds even harder than LA now, because I feel like LA now has a lot more opportunities than probably what you had at the time.
That's true. There is really a lot of stage time. There is comedy literally happening everywhere right now.
Yeah. Now, what has been your favorite moments in comedy? Like, if you you get to write your book like Steve Martin, and you get to say, this was my favorite moment that I've done so far in comedy, what would that moment be?
I mean, I think Conan is definitely my top moment. There's several others, but Conan was definitely like the pinnacle of something. And I wrote like a blog on my website about that experience, and how I really like looked at him sort of like my Johnny Carson, that previous generations maybe looked at Johnny Carson. I looked at Conan like that. So appearing on the show, and just, I was really happy with the way it went, and doing just the whole experience was amazing. So I would say that Conan is definitely the top of the list.
Now you have your own thing on Amazon, but you have a dry bar special, right?
Yeah, I was actually the first dry bar special.
You were the first one?
I was.
Oh wow. I did not know that. This is amazing. And Have they offered you a second one? Like, are you going to go do a second one or not?
Dry bar is a little. It's a nice piece of tape that I got, and I'm not really happy with the way they give out money the way. But anyway, that's a whole separate thing.
Right,
But
right. I've heard that before, so I understand where you're coming from. Now I heard that it's changed though. I know a lot of people that have had earlier specials. Obviously, not the first one. Now I know you have the first one, but I know people that had earlier specials that came back and got like a second special, or have friends that have done specials now that say it's kind of changed and is better than it was before. Would if they came
yeah,
back to you and said, "Hey Tom, we'd love you to do a second one," would that be something you'd be open to?
yeah, I never want to say no, and I don't know if they're listening to this podcast. I would probably say no, because I don't. I think for any comic, you should own your material, and I think that's a mistake that a lot of comics are making by signing with these companies and giving away their product, because there's so much money to be made on streaming through Sirius, through Spotify, through all these channels, and you're losing that money, and they flood the market with your stuff. So now if you ever decide to release it independently, you're not going to it's probably going to slip to the bottom, because the dry bar stuff will be higher up in Google search or whatever. So I would rather do my own thing, unless somebody were willing to like say, hey, we'll give you $100,000 to do this, then I'd be like, all right. That's
Right,
fair.
like the Andrew Schultz or the let's see, Louis C.K. model of like releasing it yourself, doing it that way, something like that is
Right.
what you're saying.
And that's what I did with my Outraged. So I have
Yeah.
the dry bar, and then I have Outraged, which I shot myself. I released it through. I actually went through a distributor called Distribber, which no longer
No
exists.
exist. Yep, doesn't exist
Yeah,
anymore.
Go Digital, I think it was part of, and they released it on iTunes and Amazon. And I was lucky then. After a year of selling it online, I got the rights back. They put it on the Amazon streaming service, so it was streaming for free. So I did really well in that regard. I got millions of streams through that, a lot of exposure. Now it's just available for rent or purchase. But yeah, that was that was a great time for independent comedians. Is around 2015 to 18. You could stream your comedy on Amazon for free, and
Yeah.
you'd be exposed to a lot of people, especially if it was a solid comedy special.
Yeah. So how long, but like if you could you do another special yourself now? Like do you have enough material? How long does it take for you to build up something like that? Because you're on the road quite a bit. So how long would it take for you to go to just do a new special if you're going to film one?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not really like a prolific. I'm not really into that whole like releasing specials and like how many I was happy with the one I got, and then like maybe I'll do another one at some point, but I don't really set a timetable for it. I
Okay.
like just kind of, I probably have a like 25, 30 minutes of new material I could do, um, but yeah, it probably still needs some time. So for me, there's no hurry on it. I don't like this whole thing of everyone releasing a special every year. And I
Yeah.
feel like you're hurting the quality of your product. And I also don't think it's that good. I think people need to develop material over the course of years and really kind of figure out the nuances of it. And at least that's my opinion.
No, I like that. I mean, I agree with you. I feel like there's some people that are like every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. And it's like, okay, relax a little bit, because that last special was only like it was
Right.
okay, but if you would have given another year, that would have been great, but you didn't, you rushed it or whatever. Because you see that a lot, but people are like, oh, this person has another Netflix special. And you're like, didn't they just release a Netflix special? Like,
Right.
what happened there? And then you watch the
Yeah.
quality of it and you're like, ooh, that is not as good as first. It's not as good as their first one, and it's not as good as their last one. And this one is like, okay, all right. So
Right. And I think it's a lot of, I don't have like a team pushing me to do a new special. I have an agent who I like, who I've been with since the Chicago days. But he's not pushing me to do this or do that. He just goes, hey, you want to do this? Maybe he should be a little more intense. I don't know. But I like what I do, and I like I just think sometimes you have this team around you that cares more about pushing out
Money.
another thing. Yeah, the money of, hey, Netflix is going to give you $1 million, whether it's a good or bad special. Who cares? Just put it out there, and they do it. And I think you see it, like you said, you see it a lot.
Yeah, sometimes you're like, man, that comedian's so amazing, and that's their first special, and then you see another one like a year or two later, and you're like, oh, was that a fluke? Like, what happened
Right.
there? Yeah, yeah. So it is kind of weird that it happens that way. Now, I ask a lot of comedians this, so I'm going to ask you this: what is your favorite state or city to go do stand up in?
I should say Wisconsin. I should automatically say Wisconsin, but I would say, I like Wise Guys in Salt Lake. I do like performing there. It's really the first place I headlined, and one of the first places that gave me a lot of opportunities to perform. And I would say Chicago Zanies is another one that I really love. And Milwaukee lost all the comedy clubs I started in. They don't exist anymore. So, but there's definitely some great places there that I want to get back to. But mainly when I go to Milwaukee, I just produce my own shows. So yeah, so Wise Guys is the short answer.
And I hear good things about it. There's one now, I think, in Las Vegas too, if I remember right.
Yeah,
Have you done that one? Have you done that one?
I have not. I'm not a big enough name yet.
Really? Wow.
But
I don't believe that, but if you want to say that, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I haven't been out there, but yeah, I go to Wise Guys like once a year. But yeah, I mean, he's really expanding. I mean, he's part of the Dry Bar thing,
Yep.
and yeah, he does a lot of great things.
He's the most elusive person that I've yet to get a hold of for this podcast. He's like the one person that I've like tried and it just kind of hasn't like ever happened at all. So someday I'll have Keith Stubbs on here. Someday he'll get on here. We'll have a chat. It'll be fun. I have
Sounds like a threat.
No.
Someday
I'm after you. No, it's not like that, I promise. But everybody has that list. Like I still have like, Jerry Seinfeld and stuff like that I want to have on the podcast. Like, people that you and I also have looked up to and has you're like, oh my gosh. Pete Holmes is one of my favorites because I remember watching Crashing when it first came out and I was kind of early in my comedy career and I was like, oh, I know what that's like. Oh, I know what that's like, and it was just like a really good reminder of like everyone has to struggle to get to where they want to be in their career. What?
Yeah, I liked his show. I thought he had one of the most accurate. Him and Henry Phillips did a great job portraying stand up on the road.
Yeah.
And it was and I love the way Pete shot the stand up stuff on his show. It's very realistic looking as opposed to Punchline or something like that.
Yeah. Now, what would you say was your hardest thing or the hardest thing you had to learn in stand up? What was that big hump that you had to get over that like really got you there?
In around 2007 or so, I was kind of hit a roadblock of, I was doing good, but I had kind of like, I'd done the Late Late Show and a couple other things, and I was on Comedy Central and I did Montreal, and then I was kind of in 2007, and I kind of reached this roadblock. There was a comic who basically had stolen a closing bit of mine, and I'll say his name. I don't care. Kyle Cease, who's now like what is he? He's like a Tony Robbins guy or something. And he, so it really and he did it on I talked to him. I said, hey, just don't do it on TV and this and that. And we met up. We talked about it. He offered me money for it. I was like, and then he did it. And it was really like kind of destroyed me a little bit and made me a little bitter. And I think just avoiding being bitter, because it didn't help me at all to be bitter toward his quote unquote success. And if anything, it just set me further back. And to do what you love on stage, not what other people are saying you should be doing. And it kind of goes back to releasing all the specials. It's like, I love interacting with the crowd and I love spontaneous moments. And I was really shying away from that on stage and feeling like I got to do material. instead of just sort of enjoying what I do. And I've been doing improv as long as I've been doing stand up. So it's like embrace what you love and what makes you unique. So I feel like I've been doing that after that year or two of like struggling. I kind of broke through that barrier.
Yeah, I love your clips because they feel spontaneous. They feel real. They feel like that moment you have that moment of like that spark of magic that happened on stage and you captured it and now we can see it. It's not just you doing a regular bit, it's you interacting with the crowd. And those are they're so good. Like,
well, and I like when the audience, even if the audience is the one who's funny, like I like those moments too, or where I look like an idiot or whatever, because to me, it's like, that's what comedy is. It's like, I mean, that's sort of what I enjoy about, you know, like why you love The Office or why you love Curb Your Enthusiasm, because it's like those awkward things that people don't want to show you. And it's like, no, this is a peek behind the curtain. It's not, it's not easy. And we fail a lot. And it's good to see that.
That's true. Now, if you could go back in time, but right when you're starting comedy, you go back in time and you give yourself one piece of advice, what would you go back in time and tell yourself?
Oh boy. What would I tell myself? I think just enjoy what you're doing and enjoy. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, even when good things were happening. I wasn't like enjoying the moments of that. Like I went to South Africa and I performed and I didn't feel like, I remember I got like a bad write-up in South Africa and I let that affect me. And it wasn't a bad write. It was just like, you know, Tom Clark was okay or something like that. You know, so I was like, however they say it. But to just not let that stuff, to enjoy what you're doing, because that's at the end of the day, none of the accomplishments really matter if you're not enjoying what you do. So I think just to enjoy what you do. And I think that's what I did early on, is I was bombing, but I was enjoying doing comedy. I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And to always, so if anything, I would tell my past self to go to my future self and say, hey, remember to enjoy the journey here, buddy, because you love doing comedy.
That's awesome. That's good advice for anybody, because I have those moments where I think I'm enjoying it, but I'm really trying to remember what I'm saying, trying to make sure, did you do this act out? Did you do this thing? Did you move this way? Like all those things. And it feels like I'm not enjoying it, but I am enjoying it in a weird way that the audience isn't seeing that I enjoy it. I had someone say, I had someone say, like, you look like you're not having fun up there. And I'm like, but I am having fun. Like, you don't look like it.
Wow. I had somebody say that to me too, and it really messed with my head, because it's like, I am having fun. Like, yeah. Mad at it. It's like, I am having fun. Shut up.
This is how I have my fun. You have your fun your way.
Yeah. And I think sometimes those people are just, you know, they're just mood, you know. And that's the other thing, is put yourself in groups of people that like you and are supportive of you. If somebody's bringing you down, drop them from your life, because they're not helping, you know.
Yeah.
It's the same thing of like people after shows saying like, you know, you were pretty good, but what I would do is, you know, is to not, like, just to like smile and be like, okay, good talking to you, I gotta go. Yeah.
Ugh. I know, especially when it's like someone that's not a comedian, where they're like, and I have a joke for you that you can tell, and you're like, no, this is not. This is about to end very badly, because you're about to tell the most racist joke I've ever heard in my life. I know what you're about to say, and it always is, without fail. It's always like the worst kind of joke where you're like, I would never say that in a million years.
Right. Yeah, it's like, it's always. I always just try to get through the compliment. Yeah. Before I get to the joke, like, all right, just compliment me and then move along. Yeah. But like,
I haven't got there yet. I'm still the guy that's like, okay, oh, okay, well, yeah, you know, maybe, okay, all right, well, you have a nice day now. like
all right. Well, Steph and I will bring our dog to the shows sometimes, so we always use Ruby as an excuse, like, oh, she's got to go to the bathroom, sorry, and then we'll use the dog.
Genius. That is genius.
Yeah.
My daughter, by the way, does wear the I'm a Rescue shirt quite a bit. So she's, if you ever see her out and about, you'll probably see it quite a bit. And we have, you know, rescue animals or whatever. I have a whole bit about rescue animals and that term and stuff. I just think it's hilarious, because it's just The term to me doesn't feel right. It feels like they should be adoption animals or something, not rescue animals. But
Right.
I do like a whole bit about it, and it does pretty well. People laugh and love it. But I got it because we got the shirt, and then my daughter's like, I want a rescue animal, and so we went and rescued an animal.
Oh,
But
that's nice.
I just think like the terminology is so silly and stuff, and so
Right. It sounds like you went to Afghanistan and got
right,
it or something.
right,
like that.
exactly, right. It seems like you should have had to like get some Navy SEALs to help you get this pet out, type of situation.
Yeah.
Or at least got a ransom note, right? A proof of life type situation. Maybe that's what you need for a
Right.
rescue animal, but otherwise it's just an adoption, or as I call it, you pet napped a hungry animal. That's what really happened.
Right. They should have like a escape room rescue shelter type place. That'd be fun.
That would be awesome, actually.
You got to escape. Yeah, kind of a combo.
Then you could call that a rescue animal at that point. You get the win there. I like that. That's your prize too. You got out of the escape room. You get to keep this cat or dog that you got. Yeah, whatever you rescued and stuff. Well, thank you, Tom, so much. Where can people find you? Where can they find out where you're going to be? Where can they listen to you, see your stuff, all that kind of those things?
Well, my website is tomclark.com. I got in on the game early with buying that website. Let's see. Tom Clark Comedy on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And I got shows coming up. I don't know when this comes out, but next week I'm in Reno and then I'm in Dallas. And then a lot of local dates after that. We have our show in Westlake. So just tomclark.com.
That's the one at 14 Cannons, right? Is the one in Westlake?
Yes. Yeah. Great brewery, great show.
Yeah.
Been running that show for 4 years. So yeah.
Yeah. You had to shut it down during the pandemic though, right? Like you weren't doing it then, you were doing like Zoom or something or what?
No, we did it. Because the city let them open up their back parking lot and do shows back there. So
oh wow,
they put a whole thing, and they had to have 2 at a table and 10 feet apart or whatever it was. It's so ridiculous. But we did shows. They wanted to keep doing shows, so it was great.
That's awesome. And so if you guys want to look at Tom Clark, you go to tomclark.com/appearances. You'll have all Tom's stuff on there. We are moving into September, so you'll see that there's a lot of stuff happening in September. Reno, Addison, Texas, back to Westlake at the end of September, Ventura, and then Tulare, California, Ontario, all that kind of stuff. Is that the Ontario Improv, or are you doing somewhere else in Ontario?
I think I might have to cancel that.
I'm sorry, everyone in Ontario. I made Tom Clark cancel a show.
I think we booked Tulare, and then we're not going to get back in time for Ontario. So anyway, you're heading out to Ontario a month early. Go home. Go to your house.
Go home. Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. And don't forget to go check out Tom. I'll put all his show notes or all his links in the show notes below. So make sure you go check that out. You click on it. We'll put it all in there. Go watch some of his clips on Instagram. They're amazing, and you won't be disappointed. You'll be very happy. And then go check out his stand-up and all that stuff. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you again, Tom, and have a good one. Bye.